Welcome to our February 19th forum.
Nice to see you again.
The last time that we spoke, you discussed the legislator's process in bill filing. Are there any new developments regarding the legislative session that you can share with us?
Yes, actually, we've actually started the next legislative session, which is actually the 188th session of the General Court. During that process, I've spoken to and met with many residents to understand the needs and concerns of the Second Worcester District.
All bills filed in both the House and the Senate must now be assigned to a committee in the respective chambers to be considered. On Thursday, January 31st, the Senate finalized their committee assignments.
I'm pleased to announce that for the next legislative session, I will once again be the Senate Chairman of the Committee on Higher Education, the Senate Vice Chairman on the Committee of Public Safety and Homeland Security, and a member of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means. I'm also a member of the Senate Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight. And actually this year, I'm still trying to determine whether it's a blessing or a curse. They've actually increased the number of committees I've had from 4 to 7. So I'm actually going to be a member of the Senate Committee on Bonding, the Senate Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, actually I should say the Joint Committee on Labor and Workforce Development, and the Joint Committee on Transportation. Now we've got a lot coming up over this next session with, as we've seen in the governor's budget, there's going to be a lot of talk of trying to invest in that transportation infrastructure, and a lot of that's going to be through potential bonding. So having that added, those two committees added, again, could be a blessing in as far as trying to advocate on projects that we can push forward over the next 2 years.
On Wednesday, February 6th, the House of Representatives also finalized their committee assignments. I'm looking forward to working with Representative Tom Santacantandro, who was reappointed to House Chair on Higher Education, on issues concerning higher education in the Commonwealth.
Once again, a bill is assigned to a committee, and according to the Constitution of the Commonwealth, all bills must receive a public hearing before they can be debated or modified in any way. These public hearings are scheduled and are posted on the legislature's website, which is www.MALEgislature, so it's MALEGISLATURE.gov, and are open to the general public to vote, so that they can provide testimony to the committee and for speaking in favor or in opposition to the bill, so that we can consider the information that's provided when we're debating whether we should push a bill forward or not.
Well, once the bill is given its hearing, the committee takes the bill under consideration and determines if the bill should be recommended for debate by the larger body, amend the bill further before recommending the bill for debate, placing the bill in a study to further examine the costs and effects it will have on the Commonwealth, or not recommend the bill, thus ending the debate for the current legislative session.
If any resident should have any concerns or ideas, or if I can be of any assistance, please do not hesitate to call. My office number is 617-722-1485. So if you should go on this website and you see the posting of any pieces of legislation that you have information that you want to provide us, whether it's just the hearing date or information that you think is relevant, besides calling, you can always email my office with the information. And my email address is michael.moore@masenate.gov.
Now, recently the Senate voted on a supplemental budget to help close any financial gaps that may currently exist in the FY 2013 budget. Can you talk to us a little about this?
Well, I think everyone's aware that the governor in December announced that he was filing a $515 million revenue shortfall bill in the fiscal 2013 budget that needed to be closed.
To close the gap, Governor Patrick cut certain 9C funding that was under his authority and withdrew $200 million from the state stabilization fund. Governor Patrick also requested that the legislature grant him further 9C authority to allow the governor to further cut funding to close the budget gap.
Just so people understand the 9C process, the governor does not need the legislative authority to cut from his executive office, the line items from the executive offices. It's only when he goes outside of that authority. So immediately following the governor's announcement, in December, I sent a letter to Senator Brewer, chairman of the Senate Committee on Ways and Means, opposing this request. And the request that I opposed was the cut to municipalities. Although I understand the need to close the budget gap, I did not support doing so by adding further burden to our municipalities.
Municipalities throughout the Commonwealth have had to bear the burden of budget cuts as a result of economic recession. Municipalities have worked hard to provide exceptional services to our residents with less funding.
Furthermore, I believe that we must be cautious with removing funds from the Commonwealth Stabilization Fund. Prior to the recent economic downturn, Massachusetts had more than $2 billion in the Stabilization Fund. If it was not for this Stabilization Fund, it would have been difficult to weather the economic storm as successfully as we did.
Currently, there's a $1.4 billion in the State Stabilization Fund. If the governor is allowed to remove $200 million from the fund, the Stabilization Fund will be reduced to $1.2 billion. Although, with this reduction, the Commonwealth will still have one of the highest stabilization funds in the nation. I feel that we must continue to work to return to that $2 billion threshold.
We also have to look at, too, when we're looking at the Stabilization Fund, over the last 4 years, when we've had some of the credit rating agencies come in and rate how the Commonwealth has handled the fiscal crisis, we've actually, the administration in Massachusetts has received stellar comments from the bond rating companies, and actually our bond rating increased during this time. And that was largely due to the fiscal management and, in fact, the fact that our stabilization fund was on the increase rather than declining. So that's another aspect why we should maintain this fund, is it helps keep our bond rating where it is, which also means that we get to borrow money when we're doing all these bonding projects, investing in the infrastructure. It means we borrow money at a reduced rate, so it allows us to do more work. On Tuesday, February 12th, the Senate took up debate on a supplemental budget. Like the House, even though the Senate granted the authority to the governor to withdraw $200 million from the Stabilization Fund, the Senate did not grant the governor the additional authority for the further 9C cuts. The Senate also added $44.3 million to help homeless family shelters in the Commonwealth and to help with their current caseloads prior to the fiscal 14 budget.
The Senate has received the House's supplemental budget proposal and will begin to debate on the Senate's supplemental proposal to close the impending gap. While we were speaking about the supplemental budget, I would like to also talk about the FY 2014 budget. As many of you may be aware, as in January, Governor Patrick unveiled his budget proposal for FY 2014. The proposal highlighted the governor's priorities for Massachusetts in the coming fiscal year. The House is currently examining the governor's proposal and considering their own budget proposal, which will be released in April.
I have begun my budget considerations for the upcoming fiscal year. I have met with businesses, organizations, and residents to understand the needs and wishes of the Second Worcester District. I also have received many calls and emails already from constituents and advocacy groups advocating for their budget priorities. I assure you I will continue to listen to my constituents and will consider your ideas and concerns as I bring my request to Senator Stephen Brewer, Chairman of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. We've actually also just this past week, or last week I should say, this is Tuesday of the holiday week, school vacation week rather. We actually had a Senate or joint Committee on Ways and Means hearing last week, where the administration began coming before the Joint Committee on Ways and Means, putting forth their budget, advocating for the governor's budget or their budget requests, and some of the concerns that I expressed, other committee members expressed. In the governor's budget, he's looking for an increase in the income tax of 6.25, with increasing also some personal deductions, then the elimination of 44 deductions or exemptions from the current tax structure, with the goal of increasing our investment in our roads and bridges, and also our from early education right through K through 12, and actually I should say through higher education. But some of the concerns that came up was whether the economy, even though we've done well in Massachusetts, and when I say that, that's relatively speaking, I know we still have to do a lot more. Well, the increase in the income tax and some of these exemptions could hurt. Because if you look at the exemptions that they want to do away with, they want to eliminate the deduction for dependents. So if you have children, if you have 1 or 2 children, they want to eliminate the dependent care or credits you get. Child care credits they're looking to eliminate. Tuition credits they're looking to. So you're looking at the increase in the income tax, then you're looking at some of these other personal exceptions. It's a compounding effect that, and there were many people that spoke in concern of this. I mean, there is a positive of reducing the sales tax, but I don't know if that will really that will make up the difference on the impact of the elimination of the deductions or increase in the income tax. So the governor's budget put forth as it is, there are concerns.
If you have any ideas or concerns on how to ensure Massachusetts remains moving in the right direction in FY 2014, don't hesitate to contact Senator Moore's office at 617-722-1485. You have stated that the budget process for the upcoming fiscal year has begun at the State House. Can you please explain to us further what the budget process is?
Well, the budget process each year, but specifically fiscal year 2014, began with the governor filing his budget. The annual budget process begins each year when the governor files recommendations as a bill with the House of Representatives. Under the state constitution, the governor must then submit a proposal by the 4th Wednesday in January, or in the event of a new term, within 5 weeks later. This bill is called House 1 or House 2, depending on the year. This year, the governor's budget was finalized on January 23rd.
Following the unveiling of the governor's proposal, the House Committee on Ways and Means examines the governor's proposal and releases its own recommendations for the annual budget for deliberation by the House of Representatives. Prior to release of the House Ways and Means budget, House and Senate Ways and Means Committee, which you are a member of, hold budget hearings throughout the state.
These budget hearings are broken down by subject matter, such as education and public safety, and are open to the general public to attend. Following the release of the House Ways and Means budget, the full House of Representatives considers amendments to the House Ways and Means budget recommendations, and then debates their inclusion in their final budget. The House of Representatives then approves a final amended version of the bill, or their budget, which is then sent to the Senate for consideration.
The Senate Committee on Ways and Means examines both the governor's proposal and the House proposal and releases its own recommendations for the annual budget for deliberation by the Senate. Similar to the House, the full Senate considers amendments to the Senate Ways and Means recommendations and debates their inclusion in the bill. The Senate then approves a final amended version of the bill.
The House and Senate then appoint 3 members each to what's called a conference committee to reconcile the differences between the House and the Senate proposals. 1 member of the minority party must be appointed by each branch. The conference committee reports a final compromise bill to the House and the Senate for a final vote of acceptance in each branch.
The governor has 10 days to review the budget and take action to either approve or veto the budget.
The governor may approve or veto the entire budget, veto or reduce specific line items, veto outside sections, or submit changes as an amendment to the budget for further consideration by the legislature. The legislature can override the governor's vetoes with a 2/3 vote in each branch. The House must vote first to override any vetoes before they may be sent to the Senate.
Following any legislative overrides, the budget is finalized and is commonly referred to as the General Appropriations Act for the upcoming year. Over the past weekend, residents of the 2nd Worcester District and the Commonwealth were covered with large amounts of snow from the previous winter storm. Can you share with us any details regarding the storm?
But actually, just going back a little bit, one quick item to mention, that when you're watching the budget process, I know there's going to be a lot of people concerned about the proposed increases in taxes. By Constitution, the Senate cannot initiate the increase in any tax proposals. It has to come from the House of Representatives. So if the House of Representatives sends a budget over to the Senate with no tax increases, well, then the Senate cannot consider or initiate any. But if the House sends over a budget with, say, just one of the governor's tax increases proposals, then then it's deemed a revenue bill or a money bill, which then allows the Senate to discuss not just that one, but a multitude of issues on different taxes. The 2nd Worcester District also, as we all know, this past weekend we had a light dusting, but previously we had what was called the winter storm Nemo, which dropped, I think, about 29 inches of snow on our area. I just want to applaud the leadership of the governor and the administration that that was shown in issuing a travel ban, executive order during the storm from Friday to Saturday, the first such ban in Massachusetts since the blizzard of 1978. Compared to what we are starting to see from other states affected by the storm. This assisted in ensuring the safety of our residents and allowed the public safety to properly do public safety workers, and that includes police, DPW workers being out there doing the work, and a lot of our plow contractors who are out there plowing to do their job properly and to help weather us through the storm.
Now that the storm has subsided, state officials are currently visiting locations throughout the state to assess the damage and continue the cleanup efforts following the storm. As the snow begins to melt, it's important for homeowners to clear roofs and storm drains to prevent damage. If roof snow can be removed from the ground with the use of a snow rake, which are available at most hardware stores, do so. Use caution as metal snow rakes conduct electricity if they come into contact with a power line. Try to avoid working from ladders, as ladder rungs tend to ice up.
Flat roofs can be shoveled clear, but only if it is determined that the roof is safe to stand upon. Exercise care when on the roof and avoid potential dangerous falls.
I'd like to add just one thing. On my roof, I have electrical hookups on the edge of my roof, so therefore a roof rake would rip out all the wire connections and so on, but it does do the trick in eliminating the buildup of snow and ice at the drains.
Yeah, I know it wasn't last year, the year before, when we had a lot of the heavy snow and then the icing, and I mean, I had leaks right along the edge of my roof from the water coming. It's actually coming under the ice into the gutter, then backfilling, flowing into the house. So,
Flat roofs should also be kept clear to minimize the risk of excess roof ponding in the event of subsequent heavy rainfall or melting. Large icicles can form on roof overhangs, but do not necessarily mean ice damming. Icicles overhanging doorways and walkways can be dangerous and should be carefully removed. For more
information on the storm and more storm-related tips, you can visit www.mass.gov/MEMA, MEMA, or you may call the Information Telephone Service at 211 for non-emergency storm-related questions. Once again, please take proper measures to stay in warm and while digging out from the winter storm. Also, please keep an eye on your elderly friends or neighbors who may be in need of assistance.
Now, recently you appointed a co-chair of Council of State Governments Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. Can you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, I'm actually very honored and happy that they reached out to me and asked that for the 2013-2014, if I would co-chair the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee with the Council of State Governments. The Council of State Governments was founded in 1933 and is the nation's only organization that serves all three branches of state government. The CSG is a region-based forum which fosters the exchange of insight and ideas to help state officials shape public policy.
The Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, a bipartisan committee, is the primary policy body for the CSG and primary body setting the federal-state relations agenda for CSG. The committee's particular concern is regarding federalism issues and other issues impacting states' rights.
The mission of the Intergovernmental Affairs Committee is to serve the CSG's monitoring and advisory arm on major federal issues before Congress and the Obama administration. The committee strives to interpret changing national conditions and to prepare states for the future and to promote sovereignty of the states and their role in the American federal system.
The committee monitors and acts on critical intergovernmental matters pertaining to all three federal branches of government, coordinates with other states and local government associations on intergovernmental issues where states have a vested interest, and the committee also oversees the filing of amicus briefs on behalf of the state and local governments in the U.S. Supreme Court.
Just so the amicus briefs that are filed, those are considered friends of the court briefs. So you could have an issue that, say, the Attorney General of Massachusetts was opposing or supporting before the U.S. Supreme Court. What they could do is they could reach out to the Attorney General, say New Hampshire or Rhode Island, and ask them if they could file what they call an amicus brief, which is a friend of the court brief, so that they could file a brief in support or in opposition of a matter. So I look forward to representing the Commonwealth as co-chair of the Council of State Governments Intergovernmental Affairs Committee. I think it's going to be a very interesting process, and also just looking at on the impact of some of these issues as far as protecting states' rights in comparison to, the attempts of the federal government to, I don't say gain more control, but there's been some issues that in my district, I don't know if people are aware of what's called preemption. That's before the Surface Transportation Board, and that deals with railroads. And there's federal legislation that preempts the enforcement of local ordinances. It's all an effort to support our interstate commerce by giving railroads the rights to come into communities and not having different local bylaws or laws that as you go from Auburn to Millbury to Grafton, that there are different regulations that you have to abide by, but it gives them certain rights to move through the various states and counties, and hopefully these are some of the issues that we'll be looking at.
Well, we covered a lot of information this morning, and perhaps you could give out your office number should anyone have any questions or want to get in touch with you.
The phone number is 617-722-1485. The website, my email address is michael.moore@masenate.gov. I know when the Senate President, when we had our swearing in and opening address, talked about this session, some of the major issues that we were going to be addressing were going to be Medicare or welfare fraud, EBT type legislation, trying to further close loopholes, transportation reform, or not reform, but more transportation improvements, infrastructure investments. I think we're also going to be looking at some gun legislation. I know with what happened in Connecticut, there's a lot of pieces of legislation that are being floated around. As far as that goes, I just hope, I hope what we look at. Right now, there's a lot of recommendations or ideas coming out that, on face value, they may sound good, but they don't actually do anything to stop gun violence. So what is considered and put forth, hopefully, from my opinion, I hope actually does reduce the chances and not just what they call feel-good legislation, that if we're going to do something, that it's something substantive and it really goes to the goal of what we're trying to do.
Well, Senator, I want to thank you for coming in today for our February meeting and look forward to the third Tuesday in March.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again. And I don't know if we don't see you before then, happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. But other than that, thank you, and hopefully you had a good holiday weekend.
Thank you.